John Anthony Burgess Wilson, better known as Anthony Burgess, was born on Sunday, February 25 of 1971 in Manchester, United Kingdom, and he died on Monday, November 22 of 1993. He grew up in Harperhay, but when he started his secondary school, they moved to Moorside. Burgess was educated at Xaverian College and the University of Manchester, where he graduated with a degree in English literature in 1940. His mother, Elizabeth Burgess, was a singer and a dancer on the music hall stage in Glasgow and Manchester. His father, Joseph Wilson, played the piano in music halls and worked as a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman before joining the Army Paid Corps in the First World War. Burgess' mother and his only sister Muriel died in the influenza epidemic of 1918. The loss of his mother had a profound effect on his life and literary work. He is best known for his novel A Clockwork Orange, but altogether he wrote 33 novels, 25 works of non-fiction, 2 volumes of autobiography, 3 symphonies, more than 215 other musical works, and thousands of essays, articles, and reviews. His books are still widely read all over the world. He lived in Malaya, Malta, Monaco, Italy, and the United States, among other places. In 1942, he married his first wife, Lynne Jones, in Bournemouth, England. He served in the Royal Army Medical Corps and the Army Educational Corps from 1940 to 1946. After the war, Burgess taught at colleges in Wolverhampton and Bamber-Bridge. In 1915, he moved with his wife to Oxfordshire and then he taught at the Banbury Grammar School. In 1956, he published his first novel, A Time for a Tiger, under the pseudonym of Anthony Burgess. He continued to balance his teaching and writing careers, but in Brunei, late in 1959, he collapsed in the classroom. He went back to England with a mysterious illness, which was wrongly thought to be a brain tumor. By the end of 1962, he had published 7 novels, including A Clockwork Orange. In 1969, he married Liliana Maserali Johnson, an Italian linguistic and translator. He also continued with his prodigious career as a novelist, poet, screenwriter, broadcaster, and composer. He was passionate for music. He wrote a song cycle based on his own poems, The Brides of Enderby, along with musical settings of texts by T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, D.H. Lawrence, and Gerard Manley Hopkins. In August 1945, he composed a sonata for cello and piano in G minor, which is his early surviving musical work. He was a lung cancer patient, and even when he knew he was dying, he continued to write and compose music. Anthony Burgess died at the age of 76 in London on November 22 of 1993. His last novel was published posthumously in 1995. In recent years, there have been a worldwide revival interest in Burgess' writing. There have been many reprints and new translations. Now let's move into the second part of the background info, which is the historical and literary context that will help us to understand better the intentions of the author and the composition of the book. Burgess was very interested in the American psychologist B.F. Skinner's ideas on behaviorism. Skinner's ideas state how people react to stimuli and how these reactions can be used to change or to condition the human behavior. He proposed methods to control a person's moral thinking by educating it. Anthony Burgess began a non-fiction book called The Clockwork Condition in 1973. He only wrote 1 chapter, but this single chapter explains the philosophy and the composition of A Clockwork Orange. Now let's talk about some curious and important points to take into account about the main character, which is Alex. First, the name Alex is a comic reduction of Alexander the Great. Alex wants to be the conqueror, but instead he's imprisoned and stripped of his nature. Second, the name offers a wordplay. Lex is law in Latin and word or book in Greek. That is to say, Alex is a law unto himself until his control is stripped away. Also, while he's recovering in the hospital, Alex is alexical, that is to say, without words. Alex possesses, as Burgess says, 3 human essentials in extreme quantities. He rejoices in language and wordplay, he loves beauty, especially in music, and he's aggressive. He takes what he wants and he enjoys the act of taking it. Burgess calls Alex both a hero and an anti-hero, because Alex is so extremely human and the state is not satisfied only with punishing him, but it must destroy his aggressive nature, seemingly to protect society. When the state cures Alex, it violates its covenant with the citizen, being cruel even in the way they use against him the music he can no longer enjoy. When the treatment is reversed, Alex can again enjoy music, but he can also enjoy aggression again. The power of choice is the point here. It's better to be bad for our own free will than to be obligated to be good because of others' desires, although the choice of doing good is always present. The author of A Clockwork Orange points that the nightmare novels of the 20th centuries are not about new Frankensteins or new Draculas or these kind of monsters, but about state-imposed dystopias. An example of this could be George Orwell's work, 1984. Now let's go straight into the plot summary, and we're going to start with characters. This section will be divided in two parts, the main characters and the secondary ones. Alex is the book's protagonist and first-person narrator. He is 15 when the book starts. Alex is a smart and problematic narrator who forces readers to see the world through the eyes of a teen who not only acts violently but enjoys it. Alex is also the voice through which Anthony Burgess presents issues of freedom of choice, the authority of the state, and the boundaries between them. Pete is the least aggressive member of Alex's gang. He tries to diffuse the tension between Alex and Georgie, and unlike the others, by the time he's 19 he has left the violent teen culture behind, get married, and adopt the adult life of work and family. Pete demonstrates that Alex could have chosen to reject violence at any point. His example makes the case for that freedom of choice. Georgie is like Alex, violent, ambitious, and smart. Georgie is the gang member who tries to make connections and research possible targets, opposite to Alex, who drifts through the night looking for change opportunities for violence. Georgie's purposes differ from Alex's. Alex seeks for violence for its own sake and for the enjoyment, while Georgie wants to focus on the thief and the financial gain. Dim is big, strong, and irritating to Alex. Dim is not bright, but he's smart enough to realize that Alex treats him as an inferior and quick enough to disable Alex with a quick lash of his chains across Alex's eyes. Dim doesn't change when he becomes a police officer. He is as brutal as ever. F. Alexander is a writer and political dissident. He is not only an antagonist in the novel but also a foil to Alex. Both realize that the modern state sometimes approaches human behavior and its control. He is confronted with the violence in the person of Alex. F. Alexander gives Alex the advice that he needs to consider what the state has done to him. The Minister of the Interior is the face of the state, what Alex calls the stinking government. The minister wants to use Alex for the state's purposes as a partner in covering the state's mistake. He is both Alex's enemy and his ally. M is Alex's mother, a woman who worries and cares about her son, but who also fears him because he has grown up big and strong. P is Alex's father, whom he also calls Pa and Papa. He works in a dyeing factory and stays out of his violent son's way. Joe is a man in his late 30s or early 40s who lodges with Alex's parent while Alex is in jail. He is protective. Joe is a physical and psychological threat to Alex when he comes back home. F. Alexander's wife is a pretty young woman who is kind enough to be moved by Alex's call for a cup of water. She dies from a shock after the gang brutally raped her. Finally, I'm going to explain the plot for you to have a better idea of what happens in the novel. We can section the novel's plot summary in the three common narrative parts. In the first one, we have the introduction and the rise in action process. We meet Alex and the gang and we take a look into their lifestyle. In this section, they carry out all kinds of violent acts, increasing the tension in the narrative with some key events like Georgie raising up against Alex. This will lead to the second part of the story. In this one, after being caught by the police, Alex is subjected to an experimental behavioral modification treatment known as Ludovico's technique, where he is punished with some kind of torture actions which objectives is to erase his taste for violence. The experiment is successful and then we move to the third part. In this one, Alex is out of jail, he goes home and he finds out that things had changed a lot. He doesn't have a home anymore, neither his gang nor his strength to defend himself. Then Alex is taken by F. Alexander for political aims. Under the pressure of this situation, he tries to kill himself jumping out of a window, but he fails and gets hospitalized, where the Minister of Interior goes to see him, also with political intentions. Finally, when he's recovered physically and psychologically, he starts to live a normal life where he works, and even though in this new job he forms a new gang, he doesn't find violence fulfilling for him anymore. That is why he decides to find a wife, get married, and have a child. And that's all you need to know about the background info of the book and its plot summary. Now Daniela is going to explain you about the topics we can find on it and its analysis.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your intervention here with that information that you gave us about the author of this book, because it's really important to know more about the author before we get to know about the book. After that small summary Jennifer just told us, We can now get into detail about everything that it's not explicit in the book, but it's really important and represents a lot of the general idea of the book. And one of the first things we can talk about is the symbols, every kind of symbol used in the book. And it's very important to talk about this because these symbols, without these symbols, the book wouldn't be the same. So one of the first symbols used in this book is the music, but not the music that we can listen, but the music used here in the book. And we can tell that Alex has a huge obsession with music, and more specific, Beethoven music, because he finds classic music more beautiful than the common music teenagers used to listen at the time. He don't really enjoy and he hates pop music or the common music teenagers used to listen. He only enjoys his music, his classical music, and every kind of music by Beethoven. And he describes how the music can define the personality and everything in general of a person. So because of the music you listen, he can choose if he likes you or not. So that is very important. And also because music, and more specifically the Ninth Symphony by Beethoven, is very used in this book. In every moment Alex is doing something wrong, something bad, it's part of the book, so it's very important. The next symbol we can identify here in the book is the use of natsa, and this is one of the most important symbols because big part of the book is written only in natsa. And this can make very difficult for the reader to understand more about the story of the book. So this not only makes hard to understand the book, but also it's very important in order to understand Alex's thoughts and how the story is how it is. Because this language is a reference to all the violence and the hypersexual events this group of kids go through the entire book. And also this describes the moment when a person can be part of the group of these kids, Alex gang, because once you know and once you understand the language, you are automatically part of the group. And this is very important because not everyone understands this language, and more specific, the state doesn't understand this language. For that reason, Alex feels so comfortable using it because he can use it to go against the state, because the state wouldn't understand him, and he could spread his ideals and his way of think in a way the state cannot control. So this particular symbol is one of the biggest difference between the movie and the book, because in the movie we can see that the use of this language is not so common compared to the book, that the book itself, it's almost written totally in Natsa. And some books has a small vocabulary of this language. It's very useful when you get to know the language, to know the story of Alex, and to understand why he behaves the way he does. The last symbol we are going to analyze is the use of milk. And from the very beginning of the book, we can identify this drink in the moment when Alex's group is drinking it in the Korova milk bar. So we always associate milk with kids because this represents innocence, health, growing, and comfort. But in this case, when Alex and his friends, his druggies, when they are drinking this liquid mixed with hallucinogens or stimulant, they combine violence and sexuality with the innocence of the kid, because that's what they represent. A group of kids related to the world of violence and sexuality. And this is what the author wants the reader to know and to understand that this book is about a group of kids trying to act like adults, making violent acts because they just want to have fun. Now we can analyze something more specific about the books, and those are the quotes. This book has a lot of different quotes that express something related to the world that was happening at that time. And these kind of quotes make us think twice about if the book it's about a bad man, or if the book is trying to say that the state and the society make him be the man that he is. The first quote we are going to analyze is the next one. This quote is said by Alex to the writer right before attacking his house and raping his wife. He tells him not to be afraid because this represents Alex's arrogance and how he thinks that he's over everyone. He has the control of everything, and not only he controls his own actions, but also he controls this man's response. The next quote we are going to analyze is: this quote is said by Alex right after Pete tried to take Alex's place and tried to be the leader of the group, something that obviously Alex didn't do well, and told them this. Even though he's only 15, he knew exactly that he was the only one who can rule the group. And something interesting is that chapters later, an exact situation happened to Alex where the state is the leader and he's just one more person. It's very inquisitive to see how Alex went from being the leader of a group to one more person of the society for the eyes of the state. The next quote we are going to analyze is: this quote is said by Charlie, one of the prisoners who shared jail with Alex. He tells him this when Alex finds out about the treatment that promised to cure all the evil thoughts a person can have. He tells him this, trying to dissuade Alex's decision to be part of the treatment, because the only thing Alex wanted is to be out of prison. The fourth quote we are going to analyze is: this quote is said by Alex to the Minister of the Interior when he's explaining what the treatment is about. He says that he wants a trailblazer for proving the treatment. And when Alex imposed himself as a volunteer, the minister calls him vicious young hoodlum. And there is when Alex tells him the quote. And what he's trying to say with this quote is that not because they are criminals, they have to be treated like animals. They have human dignity and they have to be respected, even if that person shows to be bad. The next quote we are going to analyze is: this quote is said by Dr. Drummond when Alex is experimenting illnesses while watching the movies. He says that in order to get him well, he needs to feel sick, because they don't want Alex to choose when to be bad and when to be good. They want his body to react in those moments of violence and sexuality in a bad way, so Alex has to run away of those moments. This is the moment where we realize that Alex will not be able to have autonomy of his actions anymore. The last quote we are going to analyze is: this quote is said by Alex to Pete in the last chapter when they gather in the bar And Pete tells Alex that he's married and that he is no longer using Natsat as his language. And Alex finds this as something impossible for him, but at the same time he realized that he doesn't feel good making all the bad things he's doing again with his new gang. And maybe that means that he's ready and his body is ready to move on and get something similar to what Pete got. As a conclusion, we can say that this book is situated in a dystopian world where the state is controlling the society but is trying to reach more control over the humanity. We can also say that Alex in the book represents the society and how a lot of times the state tried to impose the order and laws to have a bigger control over the society. Another important thing we could realize is that the author said that Alex is over endowed with three essential human traits: an innate enjoyment of the language, a love of beauty, and an aggressive nature. And we can relate these three concepts with Freud concepts of ID, the ego, and the superego, and which are the ones who drive forces of human achievement but also are the causes of the human dispute. And finally, we could understand from the book that a person, because of a variety of reasons and depending on the point in life of the person, can choose between good or bad, and is the obligation of the state to give him forgiveness and a reform, because those are options that the person can choose as well.